you hear me? All right. So I'm Bill Taylor. I'm the Global Director of Digital Signage at Haivision. And our platform is called CoolSign. Okay. What's interesting is we've partnered with Sensory, and their focus offering has CoolSign under the hood. They're able to take a lot of other services, hosting, content creation, rollouts, management, help desk, all of those other services, and it runs on top of the CoolSign platform. And we've been quite successful with that platform, the partnership between Haivision and Sensory. So I'm going to talk about digital signage, right? So who has seen digital signage just today? You know, everybody, right? So I've been doing signage for 17 years myself, and for the first 10 years I had to explain what digital signage was, but it's everywhere now. You probably saw 3 or 4 screens coming even from the parking lot. You know, you saw the screen out front for the directory. There was probably a wayfinding map. You know, and just in this room here, there's a lot of digital signage. But traditionally, we've taken a look at signage in a couple of different verticals. You know, so signage can be in education types of applications. So we're talking higher ed, even K-12. Those types of applications could be signage going to students, could be signage going to teachers, could also be signage going to visitors. So you've got different kind of customers, if you will, or clients that are going to take a look at that content there, and it's all centralized, and you can send that out. As I go through this a little bit, I'm going to talk about applications also, but I wanted to talk about vertical markets first. You know, financial. We're talking banks. You know, we've been doing banks and that type of thing for quite a while now. So we're talking about being able to go out and grab real-time analytics for like stock information, interest rate information, and being able to leverage that in real time across the signage network. You know, healthcare, hospitals. This is huge, right? They've got an environment where they've got people in that environment that are new. They've never been there before. So things like wayfinding, you know, just being able to find your way around some of these hospitals is huge. So that's a big application there. You know, restaurants. Almost everybody's moving over to, especially in the QSR, the quick serve restaurant market, moving to digital menu boards. Being able to have the local manager still manage the entire workflows through their POS, and then have the digital signage system go and leverage the prices and inventory from those systems, and real time put them up on the screen there. Retail, you know, this is kind of where it all got started. You know, advertising networks into retail, being able to sell ads, being able to monetize, you know, the signage content back across the network. Transportation, you know, these can be taxi cab companies, these could be bus and train organizations, it could be advertising on those, or it could be real-time maps, or things like, you know, your train is now approaching, or the train will be here in 5 minutes. So it's real-time integration with GPS or triggers on the train tracks to be able to then put that on the screen. Houses of worship. We're seeing a lot in this particular vertical, especially some of the larger churches that are out there. You know, some of these churches are bigger than corporations out there, right? And they've got the need to be able to push content out to a wide variety of audiences. Enterprise. This is where we spend most of our time, and I've got some examples here. Being able to go into a corporation and have the ability to communicate with the employee base, you know, outside of email. Like, you know, how many emails do you get a day now, right? A lot of times it becomes noise, right? So having the signage network as another way to communicate with the employee base is huge. And then, you know, entertainment. You know, pretty self-explanatory there. You know, this could be advertising based, going into any of these verticals as well. And hospitality, hotels, that type of thing. So, you know, as you were walking in from the parking deck, you saw, you know, 2 or 3 screens. I see them all the time, but I think there were 3 of them from this parking deck right over here. So, and also, if there are any questions as I go through, feel free to throw a hand up and we'll address it. So this is, signage. I just took a quick picture of signage that's running in my office. So, you can bring in multi sources into signage, and you break the screen up into different zones, different regions. Each one of those regions could have a specific audience. It could also have a specific owner. So you could have different owners that manage different pieces. So in the upper left-hand corner, to go to what Cody was mentioning earlier with our Makito technology, we're able to bring live video into the signage network. So, say that this is a corporate communications type of deployment. This could be in a break room, right? So you're bringing in live video, but you're also wrapping that with corporate information, corporate announcements, HR messages, birthdays, that type of thing. And it really extends the corporate brand and the corporate identity. It's just another tool to use to reach those employees. Below that, we've got things like local weather. So because of and I'll talk about it in a moment, but we have a platform called Data Watcher. Data Watcher goes out to any data source out there and retrieves that data. That could be news, sports, weather, traffic, database calls, text files, XML files, you name it. It can go out, aggregate that content, bring it back in, manage it, and distribute that where it needs to go. We can also do database filtering so that say in this particular case right here, we've got this weather. We automatically do a player filter based upon zip code. So it only puts the proper weather for that screen. So you could actually roll this out to say 100 players. You set that attribute one time, and the player then dynamically filters out of a list of 100 zip codes its own weather for the current time. Social media, Twitter, Facebook, that type of thing. That's just a data feed. So you can leverage that as well. News feeds across the bottom, media RSS feeds on the right. We fully support media that's embedded in RSS. So if you've got a video or a graphic, all of that can be leveraged within the software. Local time, local weather, that type of thing. Any questions? Okay. And this is kind of just this is the Makito that Cody was mentioning. This is this is the way that we get live video into the system. So you take a video source, that could be a camera, that could be a CEO that wants to do an address to basically the entire enterprise. You can leverage CoolSign for that. So while it's playing content 90% of the time, it can be scheduled to have a live CEO address, or a department head needs to talk to just that department. These screens can be segmented so that you can group those dynamically based upon when you need to send the content, what the nature of the content is, and so forth. Kind of from an architecture standpoint, let's start from the left here. We can take things like, kind of going back to that break room approach. We can bring in broadcast TV. Maybe you've got a Comcast set-top box right there. Goes into a Makito. Once it goes into the Makito, it's multicast video across the network, right? Then we can leverage that within CoolSign to go to all the devices that Cody was talking about in addition to the CoolSign players, okay? So once again, it's leveraging all of these video assets into all different types of devices. CoolSign players, set-top boxes, your iPhone, your PC, whatever that might be. From a content management perspective, we've got workflows within the system that you can utilize your existing workflows. So if you want to create content in PowerPoint, if you want to create content in Microsoft Paint, Final Cut, After Effects, any of those third-party tools, you can do that. We also have our content creation platform that you can use if you want to. It's got workflows with existing tools from the Adobe set, so you can actually bring in a native Photoshop document with layers, bring that in, animate that across a timeline using keyframe animations, and be able to set those animation paths. You export directly out of the content creator into the system, send it out to where it needs to go, and now that content's playing. We play all files natively. We're not doing any transcoding here, okay? So if you put, a 4K file into the system, the CoolSign player is going to play a 4K file at the other end, okay? One of the big strong points of CoolSign is also our user management. We fully support Active Directory and LDAP for user-based permissions. So you could have different workflows within the software. You might have a group that creates content and they log in and they can ingest content. Maybe that's where their workflow stops. You've got another group that comes in, they log in, they can take that content and add it to channels. So and then maybe someone else comes in and approves that and takes it from channels to the players. Okay, so the user rights management is very, very powerful. It also extends down to all the content. So you can segment content based upon user, department, group, whatever that you want to. So it allows you to have this real-time content management system available for you. So you've got all this content that's being ingested from everywhere, but you're also able to segment that by user or group. Automatic content management at the player level. The system keeps the hard drives clean on all these players. So as you ingest content, you're able to give content a series of metadata. Including things like expiration date and day parting and that type of thing. When the content is expired, it automatically pulls off the player. So from a management perspective, you're not having to manage the hard drive space of these players out there. The system manages that for you, okay? And then like I said, it is a full content management system, so we've got full metadata management. It's like 35 different things that we can track within a piece of content. So, being able to search all the content, being able to folderize the content, add quick sets, a lot of organization. You can make folders for departments and then have users that have access to that. So, it's very flexible on the content management side. From a media perspective, we support pretty much all the formats out there. So anything that you're currently doing in your normal workflows today, we support natively within the system. Okay, including that Photoshop platform there. So the native Photoshop doc PSD with layers and alpha channel blending on that. And live encrypted video too. We've been talking about live video, but we also can handle and we can introduce encryption into that as well. So you might have some applications where you need to protect that live video from end to end. So from the ingest point all the way out to the player, we can fully encrypt that. So for hospital types of applications where you've got HIPAA compliance and that type of thing. Okay. Also from an ease of use. So we've got a couple of different, I mentioned about the user permissions, and you've got different ingress points for users within the system. We also have a couple of actual interfaces. So we have an administrator interface, which is where obviously the administration takes place. It's where you're going to define your players, you're going to define the channels, you're going to define all your groups and your permissions. But then we have a simplified web UI where you can have casual users of the system log in. They can upload content, they can add content to a channel, you can create templates that they can go into and basically add or edit content via web browser. And as soon as they hit OK, those changes are made for their screens that they have access to. Okay. And this is just another kind of architecture diagram. So we start out with these client applications on the left. This could be a browser as well. Goes into that centralized server. For scalability, we add transfer servers. It's really a load balancer across the network. So it's how we can get to thousands of screens out there is by adding a series of transfer servers out there. So we've got networks of several thousand players using this particular what we call in-tier architecture. So we can, a transfer server can talk to other transfer servers, can talk to other players. So it tiers out like that. And then you've got your data feeds that are coming in from either the internet or some other type of network share. So let's talk about dynamic data. This is really one of the differentiators of CoolSign and Focus as well is our ability to integrate with dynamic data. Okay, so at the core, it's just these data feeds that are out there. It could be social media, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. At the core, that's just a feed out there. Our data watcher can go out, pull that information back, and then put it on the screen. So you can do things like searching for a hashtag or something like that, and it would then put that on the screen. RSS and media RSS, there are literally millions of RSS feeds out there. Okay, news organizations, sports, weather, traffic. If it's RSS 2.0, it supports the enclosure tag for video and media embedded in that. We can pull that out and put that on the screen as well. Media watch folders. This is a method to simplify more workflows. So say you've got a folder, like a shared folder sitting on marketing's, on a desktop in marketing, and you have a corporate picnic. So somebody's running around with a digital camera, taking a bunch of pictures. They come back to their desk, and all they need to do is drop those pictures into a folder. Data Watcher can look to that folder, automatically ingest all those pictures with the proper security, with the proper metadata, and go ahead and push those out to the screens or the displays that have been set up to pull from that folder. That could be a Dropbox, could be just a standard network share, whatever that might be. Database calls, for call center stats, business analytics, emergency situations. That's a huge application right there. Is integrating CoolSign into emergency management systems, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in a minute. Non-standardized data. We support all these data formats, but we also have a middleware kind of platform, if you will, that we can standardize non-standard data, right? So proprietary data that's out there, we can write small programs that will then query that and then make it, we can then adjust the format of that to meet one of these standardized formats. And then flat files, menu boards, wayfinding, employee directories, that type of thing. We've got this one application where it's a corporate cafeteria, and the cafeteria manager comes in the morning and puts today's menu on a spreadsheet on her desk, right? So, it's pizza is $2.50, it's a hamburger and it's $4, whatever. It's a long list. She hits save, and then about a minute later, all the menu boards change. So she's managing a digital signage piece of content or a handful of screens from a spreadsheet. She doesn't even know CoolSign exists, right? Because those back-end workflows are there and they're automated. So whatever's in that spreadsheet ultimately makes it to the screen. Now, obviously, there's an artist that went in and created the menu board, so it's got the right colors and the right font, and the layout looks really good. But all the manager has to do is just update that spreadsheet. Same thing with employee directories. So, if we kind of go back to this layout that I'm running, you can start seeing how we're pulling in all this dynamic data. The video is live, the weather is live, the news at the bottom is live, the information on the right is live, so it changes all the time. So I set this up as a complete dynamic piece of content. Set it up one time, I did it like a year ago, I haven't had to touch it. Pulls the local time from the player, pulls the date from the player, pulls the weather from Weather Underground. So, these are the types of things, you don't want the content to become stale, right? So, this might be an exaggeration of how you could go with it, but, this runs all the time. It's completely dynamic, changes every 5 minutes. So another thing that we can do within Data Watcher is we can not only put that data on the screen, so like I think it was 8 degrees out there this morning, so it would say 8. I'm from the South, it's really cold here. So it would say 8 degrees. Now what we can do is we can also set rules within CoolSign to do or play certain pieces of content when it meets that threshold, right? So say for instance, we roll this out nationally, It's raining there, it's snowing there, and it's sunny in Miami, right? So I've got a piece of content that's part of my channel. Now what I've done is I put a tag on that channel that says, I want to check the local weather in that market before playing. And if it is sunny, I want to play a certain ad. If it's snowing, I want to play a certain ad. And if it's raining, I want to play a certain ad. So within the same channel that goes out to all the players, you end up with something like this. So now there's an ad for umbrellas there, it's an ad for coffee there, and it's an ad for sunglasses right there. All dynamic within the same channel, right? So I didn't have to create another playlist that goes to each one of these. I set a business rule for one slot within my channel that says, based upon the live, in this particular case, weather, play one of these content pieces, right? And then we have all the playback reports in the background to be able to take a look at what played when and how many times, okay? Our scheduling is done through channels, and we developed the channel approach. CoolSign's 17 years old, so we did this like 15 years ago. We recognize that the playlist model of digital signage doesn't scale, okay? So what that means is, say we've got a 10-player network, and on day one you put it out there, and you want all the screens to play something pretty close to the same. So you create a playlist, put your content in there, push it out to all 10 players. Okay. On day two, you want one of those players to play something slightly different, right? So that's a second playlist that you have to manage, right? So you've got one going to 9 players, another one going to the 1. The next day you want something slightly different on another. So before long, if you want something slightly different to be playing on all 10, you've got to manage 10 playlists, right? Well, that problem only gets worse when you have a 50-player network, a 100-player network, or a 1,000-player network, because you've got all these playlists that you've got to manage. So what we did a long time ago is we took that model and turned it upside down, and we took a page out of the broadcast TV market, where they create these channels that get sent everywhere, and then we've got these localized ad insertions, if you will, based upon weather, where the player is, what the group is, what state it might be in, what city it might be in, what building it might be in, what floor it might be in. So all of those things can be added as business rules to be able to specifically tell where a piece of content should play and not. So you set up these rules, and then the player determines what to play in real time based upon all those parameters. So we can do I mentioned the problems with playlists, but we have playlists also that can be nested inside of channels, right? So it allows you to have, maybe you've got the marketing playlist and you've got the HR playlist, and those are being controlled by 2 different groups within the organization, but they all flow back under a similar channel. We talked about the attribute-based rules, being able to add attributes to every single player out there. Those could be physical attributes, those could be real-time attributes like weather, temperature, that type of thing. So those are there. And then real-time triggering. This is a great application, and I think I have a slide on it in just a moment. We'll come to that in just a moment. And then the user-based permissions. Having that multiple user workflow so that you can manage, you can have different groups or, different individuals within the organization manage just the pieces that they need to manage, okay? Real-time applications, triggering, rules-based. One thing about our system also is that the players are always connected to the server, okay? A lot of other digital signage companies out there, they use a polling method where the player checks in every 10 or 15 minutes or so and says, hey, I'm still here, I'm playing content, do you have anything new for me? And if the server says no, it kills the connection and you don't see it for another 15 minutes. Well, CoolSign is always connected to the server, and what that does is it allows us a few things. One, it allows us up to the second player and network health information. You know immediately if there's a problem with a player on a CoolSign network or a focused network. It also allows you to do real-time applications like interfacing with the emergency management system. Someone pulls a fire alarm, the screens are automatically interrupted with emergency and evacuation information. If there's a data payload that comes along with that fire alarm, like the fire alarm was pulled on the 3rd floor, you can set certain rules that say, or maybe the 3rd floor east wing, you could set content that says, please evacuate out of the west wing, right? So you can set those types of messages up ahead of time. You could be monitoring the National Weather Service, and if it sees a tornado, and you're based upon that zip code, remember, because we're filtering zip codes as part of the player attribute, you can immediately put that message up on the screen. So you can set up all these messages ahead of time and then let the system, with all of its monitoring and all, basically all the data watcher components, be able to go out and grab that information and push that immediately and override any of the other rules that you've set. I think we've talked about all that. So let's just take a look at some of the applications. So this was, menu boards. You guys are seeing more and more of these out there. These are dynamic. The prices change. What's great about full integration is it ties into the POS. So that manager at that location is already managing those prices already in that system. We're not adding another interface. We're just interfacing with the data that's already there and automatically pulling it out of the system. Local traffic, corporate communications, this is great. Starting about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we talked about that day parting. You can day part content. It doesn't make sense to throw the traffic piece up at 10 o'clock in the morning because the employees are already there, right? So go ahead and put the traffic up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? You could send this out if you've got multiple locations scattered throughout the country. Once again, we're doing a zip code filter, and we're able to pull this in dynamically. So you set that rule up once, and the system continues to play it. Fire alarm. We do a lot of these in corporate environments and higher ed, in hospitals. In hospitals is a perfect example. They've got code blacks and code reds and code yellows and all these codes, right? And they could even set it up to a touch panel. So maybe in the hospital security, there's a touch panel right there with a list of all the codes. As soon as they hit one, all the screens on campus are interrupted in real time because you've got data watcher there looking at that data, and as soon as it sees a change, it can trigger a content change in real time. Employee directories, there's one right out there, that talks about the meeting schedules and that type of thing. This is just another list of data. This is already in someone's spreadsheet somewhere, right? Why recreate that? Have Data Watcher just go and monitor that spreadsheet. When there's a change, it automatically is reflected on all the screens, right? So it's enhancing and simplifying workflows and not creating more work. And then wayfinding. We're seeing more and more wayfinding applications. Touchscreen, CoolSun supports touchscreen, so you put these in a lobby, all touch, you can drill down, and so that's there as well. Different ROI, if there are ads, you can, that's a direct ROI because there's actually money involved. This has been the ROI from retail and advertising for a while. Reduce perceived wait times. Maybe if you're in an environment where there's a line or a queue or a lobby, digital signage will reduce that perceived wait time. Interactive, we talked about wayfinding, employee directories, being able to assist that client with additional information. Back office, training. You could have a digital signage network during the day going towards one audience, but then outside of hours, you could actually do training. So that same financial institution where you've got screens up for the customers between 9 and 5, at 8 a.m. every morning, it's training, right? So you can leverage multiple applications on the same digital signage network. The branding, this is a big one here. Being able to maintain the corporate identity and the brand and the culture and extending it out to another type of communications vehicle, if you will. And that goes along with consistency also. making sure that the logos look right, that they're the right shape, and they're put up in a timely fashion, but also taken down in a timely fashion. Dealing with one company right now that spends an enormous amount of money every year on just printing paper that gets put up in their locations, right? So they spend a lot of money, they print, they FedEx out all this information. 80% of it gets put up. We don't know when it gets put up. 20% never makes it up. And then there's probably another 20% that never gets taken down, right? So, here we've got a consistent way of sending content out that a single group or a single person can manage when the content goes up, when the content goes down. So, to kind of summarize everything that Cody was mentioning and in the digital signage discussion, Haivision brings to the table, the ability to bring in all types of rich media, rich video, and be able to distribute that to whatever device you might have. Maybe that's a cool sound player, maybe it's a set-top box, maybe it's some portable device, iPhone, that type of thing. We do power some of the most demanding signage applications out there. Especially with our data watcher, being able to go at and leverage and automate a lot of those workflows. The ability to bring in live at the same time. So, you've got your signage, which by itself is very powerful, but also being able to leverage live video into that environment also. Maybe it's like I mentioned earlier, a CEO address or live TV, or in the case of a weather disaster, being able to automatically switch over to something like the Weather Channel. If there's a tornado, all that can automatically be set up. So you automate the workflows, make it a lot easier. And it's secure, so we've got the encryption in there for end-to-end video distribution. So if you've got an environment where that content needs to be protected, it is protected from start to finish. And then the Every Desktop, that gets back to the first piece about being able to take any piece of video, send it to any device that we have. And that's it. So any questions? All right. Well, thanks a lot.